highly anticipated topic. And I'm super excited for you guys to learn more about her journey, the tips and tricks she has, and just all of the great knowledge she has to share. But before we get into that, we just have a few quick housekeeping rules, or just stuff to say. We have our upcoming Miami 2023 Art Basel trip coming up. So if you're interested, please feel free to use your phone, scan the QR code, and sign up if you're interested. If you have any questions, you can always reach out to us on our Instagram. You can hit me up, Kyle, Gabe, Sam, anyone else. And then we also have our July chat for our monthly OTT member huddle with the one and only Monica. If you don't know, you're about to know who she is. It should be a really great chat. These huddles are specifically focused on just learning a little bit more about the members within our community for you to understand who are the people you're breaking bread with, sharing your time with, and just really having a little bit more of a personal connection with these folks. So please look out for those details coming soon. And we have a whole list of other OTT events. You can also scan this QR code to get this, but we have the Juneteenth weekend with a lot of things going on. So please feel free to come out, support the local community. You know, this is the first time things have been so vibrant since COVID. So it's important that we're outside and having good fun. And then, you know, we have our upcoming Miami Art Basel trip. We have our SF karaoke night, Oakland First Fridays, and then our member huddle and spotlight. So we are nothing short of events whatsoever. With that being said, we're gonna hop into our talk. And today we're gonna learn a little bit more about home buying and what that means. So I'm gonna hop into my first question with Tamika that will give her the opportunity to talk a little bit more about herself and her journey. So in my conversation with Tamika actually before this, I just learned so much. And she has a very unique and unconventional way of getting into the real estate business, which I am very impressed by. And I just wanted to give you the opportunity, Tamika, to let me know, how did you get into the real estate business and what was that driving force to getting you to that point? Oh, you're on mute.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Rachel. First and foremost, I want to say thank you over the top for just inviting me. It's been a wild ride, believe me, over the 20 years. And, just to be able to talk to people from an agent perspective about not only the business, but what you don't see typically on the television shows and some of the behind the scenes stuff, and actually some of the stuff that us agents go through, and that will maybe help you when picking out agents that you want to take the journey of homeownership with. So that being said, so yes, I liken myself as a unicorn in this industry. I really, really do, and I say that, and I mean that when I say it. My introduction was first through carpentry. I was a carpenter with Union 405 out of San Jose, California, in about 2001. And I loved it. And actually, the way that I came through was the United Brotherhood of Carpenters. They were actually going to be sued, a class action lawsuit filed against them for not hiring enough women. And there was a newspaper clipping that my father had presented to me, and this is after I came back from Howard and kind of didn't know really where I wanted to go. And I took a look at it and said, you know what, let me try this. I want to go. I want to see what it's all about. I like working with my hands. Why not? And I went, and I was hooked. And from then, I said yes to it. And so I started my apprenticeship program. They have classes, courses, all that stuff. And I started off with bridge building. So I did bridge building. So if y'all know San Jose Bay Area, 880 and like Brokaw, the widening of it, that was one of the first areas. 880, 237. Yeah, I worked on that. So that was back in 2001. But all that to say, that was great. It was a whole different experience, but I also started to do missionary work. And that is where the catalyst of me seeing homeownership change the lives of individual, that is what struck me. We would go do missionary trips to Tijuana, Mexico, and I would be gone for like a whole Memorial Day weekend, 4 or 5 days, and we would build a home for families that were waiting in taco trucks or just kind of waiting, had a pad there, and pad it being a concrete pad waiting to be built on. And we'd come, and rain, sleep, snow, shine, didn't matter. We were building, and it was one of the most amazing experiences of my life. And when we would, at the end, we would hand over the keys to the family. And in that moment, it was kind of like an inner unction, like, I want to do this for the rest of my life. How can I get this feeling for the rest of my life? And well, real estate, that was it. I found out that my auntie at the time, she was doing real estate, and I packed up all my stuff, moved to Tracy, California, San Joaquin Valley, and I got my real estate license. So that was about 2004 or so. So, and the rest is history. Babies, marriage, all that other kind of stuff came afterwards. But yeah, that was the start.
I love that. I feel like that's not how a lot of people get into real estate. So I'm really happy that that was a path you took, because I think also when we were speaking, hearing you speak so much about real estate, people watch Selling Sunset and all those Netflix shows.
Of course.
You're so caught up in the glam and the glamour and all those great things. But you have such a unique personal approach when it comes to real estate. You're very driven by ensuring that the people are taken care of, that they're being placed first. You're really passionate about building those relationships and having those long-term relationships. So can you tell me more about the moment that you realized this is the path you wanted to take, and not necessarily the superficial path of real estate, I'm going to make great money and just keep it pushing?
Yeah, no, and that's a big thing. When we talk about masterclass, I hope that there are those on here that if they have an idea of wanting to go into real estate, or if they're trying to decide who they want to rock with them, on this real estate journey. Because again, I say I'm a unicorn in a lot of ways. For me, growing up in the Silicon Valley, being in the Silicon Valley, it's easy to get homes that $1 million plus, 2 million, 3 million. That's not difficult. So it's already in luxury market in comparison to nationally, right? The average price point in, even just the Silicon Valley, that's where my business still is $1 million, give or take, right? And that's your townhouses or your luxury homes. It really doesn't matter, but we've already crossed that threshold. So that wasn't the issue for me. For me, it was more of, I wanted to do something that had purpose. I wanted to do something that was different than what I was seeing on the movies, was different than what I was seeing from the people that I had met. It seemed like it was so superficial. And I said, for me getting in here, it truly was a heart issue. I honestly wanted to make sure that what I did with people, it was life-changing. It was something that would be a different trajectory for the rest of their life, not just a one deal and that's it. I really wanted to make sure, and I still do to this day, want to make sure that, when we go in and, a person calls me up and this is what they want to do and go forward with, it's more than just a transaction. I'm always the one, and I've, been blessed that over the 18 to 20 years that I've been in real estate, it's been practically referral on a lot of it. And why is that? A lot of word of mouth, a lot of hands-on, a lot of referral business. And I liken that to the approach that I have, where it's not just the quantity, it's the quality of the work in which I do with people. And that by far subpar. If you are interested in getting in this business, yes, you have your basic stuff that you do, but ultimately it's the genuine nature of being someone who actually cares. Because typically in this business, 85%, give or take, and it's still that way. It's been this way for years. Even when I got into the business, the first thing that I heard that, first 5 years, 85% of agents don't, they don't last. And I'm like, well, why is that? Well, because they liken you to, most people, the public, they liken real estate agents to used car salesmen. And matter of fact, even now they kind of put us on the same level. And sometimes you do get that. Me, even as an agent in the industry, I get people and I come across that way. And I'm just like, that's not all of it. With sales is one thing, but it's also it's not the end all in this particular business. Sales has a bad connotation. I don't even consider myself a salesperson. I honestly say, what you want. There's a service that I provide, and in that service, I'm going to get you something that you want, not something that you don't want. Because I want to be able to knock on the door, and say, hey, Tamika's here, and for you to actually open it. And not to be like, hey, that agent that's over there, nah, they forced me into this home, or like I signed a whole lot of papers I didn't understand anything that I was getting into. So integrity is a really huge thing with me. And I think that was really one of the things that drove me to continue on in this business, because I saw it doing, like, people doing it one way. And I said, no, there's another way that you can do business. And it's true. We talked about it before, like my approach to it, it's not just real estate. I can't separate my faith with regards to real estate. It just kind of goes hand in hand. And the beautiful thing about it is what I found out over the years, that there's so much information, especially with the internet. Remember, I went from a time when there wasn't really good internet, 2001 show, and then all of a sudden this burst of internet, knowledge and information. So people got a lot of it. However, what they don't have is the integrity behind the person, helping them go through the process. That was a whole nother issue. Nor did they have a perspective of mindset shift on, no matter what information that you get, no matter what the market is saying, and we'll get into that a little bit, but what's in here saying and what's in here saying. It makes all the difference. You can have all the information and knowledge in the world, but if you don't know how to act on it, you'll never do anything with it. And I've been there, done that, seen it over and over again.
No, that's so real. And like, I think also, like, representation is also so important, because I feel like I don't see a lot of Black women within the space of real estate, especially successful Black women. Some, of course, these spaces are not necessarily built for us, so you can go in the space, but there are blockers that hinder your success. So, like, being in the business for almost 20 years, like, how have you been able to make it a more, like, equitable space and really doing right by your community? Like, I know you mentioned, like, you ensure that your faith is very much so connected to it, community, relationships, like, all of those things are so important. So, like, how are you really, like, bringing that equity to the space to, like, have folks be a bit more educated, or just having more Black women who may be interested in coming into the space and having someone to lean on?
Exactly. No, what I found was really, really important was the trades. So anytime I get an opportunity to speak on trades, now, again, I attended Howard, did Howard, HU. And so for me, that was like huge, because representation, right? But there was another facet to that, where I don't want people, and especially young people, and especially youth, college may not be your thing, and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I've known people, for instance, my mom at that, she's been a master barber for over 30 something years, successful business in the Silicon Valley as a Black woman. So I've seen it done entrepreneurially, right? My goal is not only when I talk about things, to talk about even my experience. Yes, I've had some college, but you know what? The trades is what made me in my business acumen. The trades are what made me in my entrepreneurship, and that's success. And whenever I get a chance, in order to talk to, whether it be classrooms, I talk a lot with just where the foster care facilities, school facilities. I have a nonprofit that'll be gearing towards the trades, especially with underserved areas, and specifically targeting a lot of women in the trades. I did a lot of neighborhood builds and such. But I always want to highlight the fact that the trades is actually declining. I don't know if most people know that, but the trade industry is declining, and so that's your plumbers, that's your electricians, that's your carpenters. That's things that you work with your hands, and a lot of those aren't getting the enough traction as I believe that they should. Me myself, in coming into this trade, you have this one perception of your white collar, your blue collar and stuff, but I kid you not, I was blown away at some of the people that I came in contact with, especially being a Black woman, a young one at that, and all of these men. There was like no women there, but I've met some of the most amazing people, most amazing individuals, even to this day, that I know of, and it taught me that just because it may not be in a classroom or four walls of a classroom doesn't mean the intelligence and the level of acumen someone has is limited to just a classroom. I've met some amazing and brilliant people, especially the way that they think. You know, it's amazing to see even women in these spaces, how they think when solving a problem, right? Everyone has a different approach, but it's really interesting to see, even just as a woman, how you approach problem solving versus a man. Not to say one's better or one's worse, not at all. But it's the way that you think about certain situations, and you'd be surprised. You come up with the same result, but it's just interesting how you get there. And so it taught me a whole lot. And every single time I speak to, whether it be young person, youth, or talking to young people, that is probably my biggest plug. Do not negate and neglect the trade industry, because it is something that, number one, at least for myself, I went in with carpentry, I came out with real estate. There's so many different ways that you can go. You know, for me, I just happen to go carpentry, but man, you can go, you know, you can do the electrical route, you can do a commercial route, you can do more building, you can go into safety. Maybe there is more admin stuff that you can do. You can go into, you know, even social media. I mean, there's so many different avenues. Lending, there's so many different avenues that you can go in, even starting with a trade. So I think that's one of the biggest things that I want to make sure that not only myself, but their lot is expanded so much more since 2001. Oh my goodness, so much more since I started. But I'm hoping that the voice becomes a little bit more amplified with the trades and with women in the trades.
I love that. Yeah, I do definitely think that trades are something that are typically like looked down upon, when really they're the backbone for like literally everything that we do, and it pays very well. A lot of people don't know that. But
look, back in 2001, you know, starting off at like $17.95 an hour, and this is 2001 as an apprentice, not knowing anything. So they're training you. You have your tools, and you're going out doing like work like that. 17. And it's far much more now. And I went with a union too. So you got to figure, like most people, again, you're as a society, we're always geared to kind of to go in one direction. But that's why I like going against the other direction and really giving more knowledge and information. And it's really the unknown. People don't know. So that's one of the ways in which I let people know, hey, there's another way. There's a lot of young people. My gosh, there's a lot of young people. They don't want to go to the college route. And when they finally and they have entrepreneurial, like they want to do things outside of that. They want to work with their hands and stuff. But if it's not presented to them, like it was to me, it was presented to me, they always think that, well, then there's something wrong with me because I don't want to go that route. And, you know, the more you get the word out, and the more you talk about things, especially STEM and, you know, even in that aspect, right? But the more you talk about these things and the more they see representation, the more they're like, well, you know what? I think I want to go in that direction too. Let me try my hand at it.
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. And I think this is a great segue into like, there are a lot of misconceptions really when it comes to real estate and like how you can get into it from an investment standpoint, purchasing your first property, anything of that nature. And I think especially in this day and age, a lot of young people are trying to figure out, how can I get into that space and get into the space where it matches my needs, and everyone's circumstances are very different. So could you let me know of like one or two misconceptions that are pretty common, and then how are you tackling those misconceptions to ensure that folks have the knowledge they need, the support they need, and just sharing maybe some of those like tips or tricks?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing, and those that do know me, they know that faith plays a huge role in my business. Sorry, just does. Not sorry. Because there's a lot of things. First and foremost, mindset. And I talked about that a little bit before, but I got to hit it, because over the hundreds of people that I've worked with, mindset has been one of the driving factors of causing people not to go forward in home ownership. And mindset not meaning like, like I don't have access to information. It's the mindset of thinking, and because of what you're being fed and what people are saying, what auntie down the corner, what uncle said, what grandparent, what my mom said 20 years ago. It's just the mindset of thinking that this is just not even a possibility. There's no way that I can make enough. and there's no way that I can there's no way that I can do this because no one in my family has ever done it. I've come across that a whole lot. And when I talk about mindset, there's many different ways people kind of go against like different mindset blocks. But for me, and where I've been gifted at and where I have the most grace at, is in the mindset of dealing with faith. Those that I've worked with, there's some probably on the call, is really, really important, because what I found is that when we were going through, like let's see, year 2020, like we were in a whole global pandemic, right? People's fear on things like just crept up. And I'm sitting here in church thinking like, why are you, wait a minute, what happened to the faith aspect? If anything, we're supposed to be like, we're going to take this and conquer this. We're going to get, home ownership or whatever it may be. But it didn't, that wasn't what was happening. There was people fearful, and they were leaving based on the fact that they would never be able to get a home in the Bay Area. And I said, that's just ludicrous. I said, okay, fine. And so those that do know me know that I started what was called faith and home buying. And when I did that, it was for the main purpose to get the faith aspect of knowing, yes, you can. Get out of your head that you can't, because why? I'm going to show you testimonies of individuals. So I started to show testimonies of individuals that in this market that have overcome odds. And actually there's like little snippets of faith and miracles that have happened in a lot of these stories. And I said, I can't keep these stories silent. And I started to share those stories. And this is, again, this is something a little bit unique that most people weren't doing, especially when you're dealing with buyers. Most people didn't care. They didn't care about buyers, you buying a home, whatever. They really didn't care. However, I said, you know what? I'm going to highlight the buyers that I know in this market that have come to me saying, Tamika, I don't think this is possible. Then all of a sudden it's possible. And we're going to get these stories out, and I'm going to share it with people and let them know that these are testimonies from people. You don't have to take it from me. This is someone that didn't have 20% down. And this is another misconception. They didn't have 20% down. They maybe was a teacher at that, on teacher salary. And they had limited knowledge and information. It was the first one in their family even attempting to go to home ownership. I mean, all the odds in comparison were stacked against them. And these are the stories that I show people, that with the diligence, the trust, the faith to believe that it's possible. These are the stories that I present to people as a teacher coming in, getting around $30,000 in public or assistance credit, housing assistance credit that she doesn't have to pay back at that, and to help and getting her in at 5% down. In a market where people are just like, no, this is just not. There's just no way, right? So what I found, it was when I started to do that, the faith level in a lot of people rose. So it's almost like when you hear people over and over and over and over and over getting it, and you're like, well, dang, well, let me try my hand at this. And that's actually, for me, that's worked out probably the best. So much so that a whole church, I kid you not, a whole executive staff, church staff, are all homeowners throughout a pandemic at that. So it's, for me, it's you don't have to even take my word for it. I really, really, I'm the kind of person where the proof is in the pudding. Like, you don't have to believe me. I'll show you the people that have overcome odds and obstacles. And we're talking about people, even vets. I work a lot with vets. I work a lot with FHA, Fellow Housing Authority, 3.5% down, government, type of loans. And anything under 20%, I want the hard stuff. Give me the hard stuff. And these are the individuals that agents beforehand have told them, no, you'll never be able to have a home. No, you can't use your VA loan. Use a regular conventional. Conventional is a 20%, or more, type of loan. And why would I tell a veteran, even though they fought for the country, these are their benefits? Why would I tell them, no, don't use those benefits, go a different route and spend more money on the down payment of a home when you can do 0% down? Why would I do that? No, you advocate for your client and you make it known that they're using this benefit. And matter of fact, you should really, as a listing agent and as a seller, you should really see and take heed on them actually going in and looking at a home and just advocating for them. So some misconceptions, I'll go back. Some misconceptions, mindset that they can't do it, which is a lie. Any situation, even on Section 8, any situation is possible for home ownership. And, again, I could dig a little deeper than that, but from Section 8, 3.5% down, 5% down, public assistance as well. They have different programs that come out where you can use a lot of money from different cities and state programs, national programs, in order to help with down payment assistance. So there are a lot of ways you can skin this cat.
I love that. No, I think, I think that, I hear all the time about the 20% down is needed and all of that. I'm like, dang, that's a lot of money to like come up with right now. So I'm happy to hear that there are additional avenues that can be taken where that is concerned. And honestly, like, I think this goes into our 2-part question of like, what are 3 things that you would let us know in terms of buying real estate that we should know ahead of time? And then with that being said, like, our economy is literally in shambles at this moment. And, everyone is like, do I buy a home? Do I not buy a home? Like, what do I do, especially in the Bay Area? So what would you also say you would challenge folks to think about to not necessarily be so negative in a market like this, and we could possibly like navigate that?
Yeah, no, biggest thing is, so it's almost like when you go to a doctor, right? You think that there's something wrong with you, but you have no clue, right? So instead of kind of guessing or thinking, hey, maybe everything is all good, or maybe I can't, the first thing would be to absolutely get a checkup, and that's really seeing a mortgage consultant. It's different when you monitor your credit score online, and like, Credit Karma, that kind of thing. It's a little different because you got to figure a lender looks at 3 credit reporting bureaus. So that's TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. All right. So it's a different type of pool that they do. I always tell people, look, if you're even interested, even if you don't do it now, it doesn't cost you anything. See where you're at, even if you think you have the inkling that this is something, a direction that you might want to do. And again, it doesn't cost you anything, right? You go and you see, and because a lot of people make the mistake where, oh, well, I have all this debt, I'm paying all my debt down first before I go and buy a home. Well, you might be surprised that the loan to value, or well, not loan to value, but your debt to income. So the amount of debt you have versus the income that you bring in, it actually might be within the limits that you need. And that money that you're using to buy down all these credit cards, that is probably great money to be used for a down payment. Don't do it. So that's why, again, my first piece of advice would be to get a mortgage consultant's checkup. That's a loan officer, same thing, but get a checkup and just say, where do you stand? I say that also, number 2, the reason why is to know even the landscape, the blueprint of what you're even looking at. Like I said, you may not even have to pay certain things down unless you're, highly over 30% as far as your the amount of debt that you owe on credit cards. You'd be surprised. It's not going to affect your credit score at all anyway. So, and then you'll have a specific way in which to kind of navigate. If they say, no, pay this one, you can leave that one alone, pay this one down. It'll save you $20,000, $10,000, and maybe even several months in order to go try to look for a home, especially if you have a certain time frame in doing it, right? Also, to a student debt, you'd be surprised. Even though you do have student debt, there is obviously a deferment period, but that's actually considered good debt. So when talking with a mortgage consultant, you'll actually see that you can probably still get through on a mortgage, a school debt. What they do is, especially if it's deferred, so there's ways that you can go about still, even if you owe money on it, there's ways that you can still go through having student loan debt and being able to purchase a home and not having it counted so much against you. I believe there's a percentage that they'll count towards it. So people think that, oh no, I just have too much student debt, I got to pay that down. No, you'd be surprised. That, again, another reason why you would want to go get a checkup and see where you're at. A lot of times too, with your credit score, a lot of people think that, oh, my credit score is good. Yes. Remember, you can still get a home for, I mean, I've seen people get a 580 credit score and still get a home. Now, granted, your interest rate will, that it will reflect that. However, you want to stay about you don't even need to get 800 something. If you stay about 720 and higher, it's the same thing. You're not, it's not going to be more or less, but that's the sweet spot, 720 or more to get the prime interest rate that you want. Anything under that, it's a little bit different, a little bit of something that you'll have to, work out, or maybe even get a little bit higher. But you could still get a home with that, and it may be a little slightly higher interest rate or APR. However, it still will work. FYI. So those are like little things that that's what did I say? It's your the amount down. That was one. The next one would be getting a checkup with a mortgage consultant. And they can do a soft pull. This is another thing. Most people think, well, if I go to a loan officer, they're going to pull my credit. I was like, no, and this is something you should write down. No, you can ask them to do a soft pull where it doesn't go it's not a full pull, but they get enough information in order to have a snapshot of your credit report from all 3 credit bureaus. So you can always ask for that. And you could do multiple pulls on your from different mortgage consultants. So say, for instance, you wanted to go through like your big bank. I don't particularly go through my big bank. I don't particularly care too much for them, just because they have limited programs, but it's okay. You can go through a Bank of America, fine, and get a pre-approval, right? Then you can go to maybe a mortgage broker. A mortgage broker is a little different than a big bank. Mortgage broker, you can choose over 60 something different mortgage packages, and they fit in a little bit more that you can fit, all depending on your situation. So there's a little bit more to choose from. Mortgage broker, okay? So basically, they're not the one doing it; they're brokering the deal. Or you can do one for a direct lender too. So direct lender is kind of like a mixed mash of both of them. They're a bank as well. They hold their own notes. They hold their own loans, and they have some outside the box type of programs that you can choose from too. So I like to see a good indication of all 3 of them, and you can do that. Why? Most people have the misconception in thinking that when they pull the credit, oh, that's just going to mess with my credit score. Not necessarily. Within about 30 to 45 days, when you're shopping for a mortgage, the pulls are not as like a car pull or credit card. It's different, and it's not counted as like 5 points or 10 points as it would be for a credit card or a card. It is usually counted as 1, maybe 2 pulls. So that's another misconception too. Oh, just don't pull my credit because it's always, no, not necessarily. And especially if you already have a higher credit score, it's really not nothing for you to worry about. Now, if you're teetering on something, then yeah, you want to be concerned with that. But to be honest with you, 840, 720, it's still the same.
Yeah, I love that. Awesome. And then I know like we're coming up close to time, and like there's so much I still want to ask, but I know people have questions too. With our final question before going into the questions that the audience has, can you give me a little bit more details about the different types of real estate? And when I say that, I mean you have folks who may want to like buy just to buy and like have it for them and their family, buy and then rent. You have duplexes. I don't even know if they're called triplex, whatever they're called. You can build it from the ground up. You can rehab. There are like so many. So like, could you kind of like talk a little bit about those different options that people can explore?
Exactly. One of the biggest things for me is being able to have not affordable housing, but housing that people can afford. And one of the things that I'm doing, yes, I have business over in California, but I also have expansion over here in Texas. So one of the things that I'm working on with a team of a developer as well as a construction company, I'm teaming up with them, actually going to be a part of them, is making home affordability and investments a possibility for people across the board, especially from California that want to invest in other places, but don't know where to start or who to talk. So yes, you have properties that you can invest in. And one of the things I would say is don't be scared to invest out of state. Yes, California it's pretty expensive. However, think outside the box. There's many ways that you can invest and make your money work for you as well. And so, yes, I'm in Texas, and so that's one of the sweet spots that I say, investing in is your money goes a lot longer, got a lot further there. You have duplexes, you have that still stay under commercial. So your duplexes, your triplexes, and your fourplexes, those are the ones that stay under commercial, still residential. The thing about it in the Bay Area, to find these, unless you're going up in like Sacramento or you're going all the way out in the outskirts, you're looking at still $1 million easily for even just a duplex, especially in a good neighborhood. However, they do have them where they're decent price points, but you're going to have to put a little work in them. Most people forget that you can actually, there's just so much on this topic, but what you can do, there are homes that you can refurbish or not refurbish, but reno over in like Oakland has a lot of them to Richmond and such, but they have a lot of duplexes and even triplexes that you can get a hold of. Yes, you're going to have to put work to it, but the cool thing about it is they have what's called a FHA loan, so Federal Housing Authority loan, FHA, 3.5% down. Cool thing about an FHA loan is as long as you're living in probably one of them, you can actually get a home and a triplex for a fraction of the cost of putting 20% down. The good thing about them too is you're able to do what's called a 203K loan. So sometimes that it takes a little longer sometimes, but you can get the work done on the home through, and that's already built into the loan. So there are, the time is kind of short, but there's so many things that you can do, but that's one of them that you can get started with in the Bay Area because a fraction of the price, and the home can be built and renovated for you. Live in one, all the rest you rent out, your mortgage is paid for.
Love that. Yeah, I've definitely heard of that. That's definitely something I got to think about. But
yes, house hacking.
Yeah, and pad splitting and all of that. Yeah, I love that. So we're gonna go into the questions because I'm pretty sure people have a lot of burning questions. So I'm gonna read some from the chat, and if you have anything that's live, feel free to either use the raise hand feature or coming off mute. But the first question we have here is, how can I make sure to buy a home that I can afford?
Well, that's why you go see a mortgage consultant. So what they do is they look at things based off of your loan to value or your debt to income. So on paper, it may feel some type of way with you and like, oh, I'm not used to paying that, but on paper, it works. And that's why you go and see them. And again, the misconception is, well, I only want to spend $1,000 in a mortgage. That's not logical, nor is it reasonable. It's just not. Whatever you're spending right now for rent, you probably need to add maybe about $800 to $1,000 on that. And technically, believe it or not, all it is a lot of times is a lifestyle change. So what you used to do, like going to Starbucks, eating out, Uber Eats, playtime and going on trips and stuff like that. To be honest with you, if you really budget yourself, and this is why I say go get a mortgage consultant to look at your bills. You get to see where your money goes. And then if you cut back, and it may not be forever, but if you cut back a little bit on some of these things, you'd find, oh my God, that's an extra $1,000. That's an extra $500 that I actually can spend on a mortgage. The cool thing about that is, again, having something that won't continue to rise on you. A lot of my clients, that's important to them because Bay Area, yes, you have high rents. And guess what? They're going to get higher. Yeah, there's some control that they have in certain areas, but it's going to get higher. It just is. And, some people want a lot more stability than that and want something to pass down.
Love that. And then the next question is it still reasonable to buy a home with interest rates today?
Yeah, well, I have clients that do. They still do. Right now we're probably at 6 or so percent. Let's put it to perspective. So perspective is, remember, when I talk about unicorn years, and some of you may have seen this all over, the internet, but it's the truth. 2020, 2021, and that's what most people kind of remember and know of in their head. But that was an anomaly. That year of like a 2%, 3% down, that's not typical, y'all. It's not. The years prior to that, you have to figure we were barely hitting under maybe about 4-5%, maybe 4-ish if you got lucky, so it's going back to where it was prior to those unicorn years. And so when I tell my clients, when you try to do a comparison, and because that's what's in your head, of course, the last 2 years, it's not a good comparison because those are unicorns. 2%, 3%, it may go back to that, but that's very unlikely. So right now, if you're working with about 5, 6%, 7%, that's where it's supposed to be. That's where it needs to be. That's the growth that we need to have. And you put it into even more perspective, like back in the 80s, for instance, like when my parents were looking at homes in the 80, 82, 84, guess what, y'all? It was like 14%, 14, 12, 14%, sometimes 17%. As well. So perspective wise, we're actually doing pretty good in interest rates. And you got to figure too, it's the weirdest thing. People always talk about, hey, 7%, 6%. It's still lower than your credit card. Y'all okay with a 13%, 14, 15, sometimes 29% credit card? So it's a house. So it's just, if you putting it into perspective, it makes all the difference. And that's why in comparison to not 2020 and 2021, comparison to before, we're right where we need to be. You can always buy down your rate. And most people don't know this. Here's a tidbit. You can always buy down your rate too. So if you don't like the 6%, yes, it's going to cost you. But if it makes sense over time, because you're going to be in that home for a long while, over 10 years, maybe 30 or so, it makes sense that you pay it up front. So therefore, your payments are less money. Here's also another tidbit. You see a high price because you're looking at impound account and impound account taxes and insurance. So yeah, it's going to bloat your payment, maybe about, $800 to $700 or so dollars, maybe sometimes $1,000 in some cases. But if you don't have an impound account, you can get away with not doing it. Guess what? That payment goes, whoop. As long as you save your money and pay your property taxes when you're supposed to, you're good. So, so there's certain ways that you can still make it work and still afford a home. So FYI.
I love that. That's really good advice. We definitely got to chat.
I know. Yeah. It's just so much in like a small amount of time, y'all.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. So Veronica had a great question of what advice do you have for first-time home sellers?
Yep. Actually, the beautiful thing about just my new company, Redbow Real Estate, and me teaming up with just my partner side, the access to people I have, and it's beautiful because I've helped now a good almost a handful of my clients that have equity in their homes as a seller. See, back in the day, you're used to having to pay this money up front, get the home fixed up. So a lot of people don't have the money up front in order to do that. But how beautiful it is that I'm now teaming up with companies. Revive is one of them, revive.com, look them up. But it's a beautiful company where my clients now get the opportunity to utilize their equity on the back end. They have no money up front in order to use. So there's no money put up front. It's all through their equity of the home. So as long as you have 20% or more equity inside the home, you are a valuable or a viable candidate to use your equity in order to fix up the home. And you can see, they used to be ex-flippers. So now you get to see the value add on what you would do in the home and how much more money you can get. Gone are the days, honestly, that my clients would have to get rid of their home to an investor, and then the investor make an extra $100,000 off of their home. Now it's an opportunity for now you utilize and you have the power to do that. So I would absolutely, if you have a good amount of equity, utilize that. People like myself do offer that program. I know there's some other brokerages that do as well, but that for sure is one of the better ways to go. And there's no extra stuff. Whatever it is, if it's $30,000 they do, $40,000, $50,000, doesn't matter. Whatever it is, that is the amount that they take at the end. I've had many different clients rave about it. So I'm glad I was able to bring that to them.
Love that. That was a great question. So thank you, Veronica. And I think we're gonna close out on that. And I know we're a little bit over time, and I know we have so much more that we could really talk about. But Thank you, everyone that was able to join. What we'll be doing is, of course, sharing this recording afterwards, and of course, sharing all information to get in touch with Tamika so you can have your one-to-one, get your checkups, all of that, and just asking other questions that you may have. And I just want to personally say, Tamika, thank you so much for taking the time to come and speak with us and just like share your journey, but also the tips and tricks. Like, this is not something that people are very much so willing to do. Real estate is a very much so like gatekeeping industry. So I'm very happy to see that a fellow Black woman is a trailblazer in her space and taking the time to give back to the community as well. So thank you.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. And again, thank you, Rachel. You're awesome. You're amazing. It's great to finally meet you. And Kyle, over the top, thank you again. You guys are amazing what you're doing. And I wish you nothing but the best of success.
Thank you. Awesome. Hope you guys have a good rest of your day. Don't forget to check out the other events that we have coming up. We'll send more information. And if you have any feedback, just let us know as well. We're happy to take all feedback to improve as we continue doing these master classes and any other events that Over the Top has as well. So
they need to be longer.
I will. Yes, there you go.
They need to be longer.
Thank you. All right, y'all. Have a good one.
Bye, y'all.